But, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about in our discussion today is that the word shaman is kind of becoming a clique. It's kind of like a fad almost. And shamanism, as you know, has a very, very deep history, deeper than religion. In fact, what we call religion emerged out of shamanism. But typically, if you travel to places like Peru or various other countries where shaman are more rooted in the culture, the shaman there often go through years of training under sometimes one shaman, but often multiple other shaman. For example, your friend Sean Lee, he trained with like 10 or 12 different shaman once he left shaman school, and shared with me how much he gained from all these different approaches. But in the United States and Europe and Australia and places that I frequent and have relationships with people in, I've had numerous students tell me, they're going to see a shaman, or clients that are seeing a shaman, but usually they're people that have somehow identified themselves as a shaman, which I'm not for or against. But what happens is there's really no core training. There's nothing consistent among them. And in many ways, they're almost like people that call themselves energy healers. Some of them have unique abilities. They might be able to do things that psychics do. They might be able to do tarot readings or a variety of other approaches that are lumped in to shamanism. So with your background and your years of experience and practice, I'm wondering, what is shamanism, and how does shamanism differ from other forms of energy medicine, folk medicine, or New Age healing approaches?
Okay, well, shamanism, the word originated from the Tungus language. It's a Siberian language, and it actually meant that a person who was traveling in non-ordinary reality, in an unconscious or altered state of consciousness. And that's really where the true word came from. And I think shamanism became a buzzword because before we used the word shaman, there was words like witch and wizard, and it had this different indication of what they were doing. So people were like, that's sorcery, or that's voodoo, or that's something. So shamanism came with a mystique word to it. So it's like a new way of describing this. So I think people are using that word because it's used differently than when you hear, that person's a witch. Or you hear a shaman, and they go, shaman sounds really cool. Witch sounds like they're going to do some black magic to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we're seeing the word shaman more readily now in our culture than we did before. But if you look at the roots of shamanism, there's a definition I wanted to read to you. It's actually from one of my teachers, Don Oscar Miro Casada. And he says, a shaman is one who develops a personal and intimate relationship with the unseen world for the purpose of being of service as a teacher. This relationship is cultivated experientially through self-induced altered states of consciousness, ritual ceremony, and refined energetic awareness. Shamanism is not a religion. It is a spiritual practice grounded in a reverent awareness that the world is animated, conscious, and energetically independent. And I think that's a really beautiful way to sum up what shamanism is really about. And it's that deep connection to the earth and the spirits of the animals and spirits of the plants, and being aware that everything is alive. And I think that's what we really have to remember, that what true shamanism is about.
Yes. Now, having looked into all sorts of different authors and documentaries on these topics, because as you know, they're very interesting to me, it's interesting that there's a fair bit of shamanism that is more earth-oriented, like, nature spirits or happenings with the tribe, a sick person. Shaman used to be very involved in things like tribal warfare, casting spells, finding animals when they were for the hunters of a tribe. But one of the things I've noticed is that there's also shaman that seem to be extraterrestrial or extra dimensional. Many of those tend to be using psychedelic medicines, which are classic, as you know, to many native shamanic traditions. But if you look, for example, at Graham Hancock's book Supernatural, he goes quite extensively into the experiences that shaman have and the ladders they climb that go off into other dimensions, and working with spirit animals such as maybe an eagle, a hawk, or a raven, and flying into extraterrestrial dimensions that they describe as interacting with this dimension. So it seems that there is, and the other thing too is that was very interesting is that when he looked at people that had had what he classified as a shamanic initiation through these types of extra-dimensional relationships, that they were almost identical to the claims of people that had had contact with or been abducted by UFOs. And it looked like they were going through some kind of an initiatory experience. So my kind of query is, in your experience, what percentage of the shamans that you've worked and interacted with are extra-dimensional versus more middle realm and underworld realm?
Yeah, well, according to Michael Harner's work, he says that actually only 10% of the indigenous people were using psychedelic drugs. So, the majority of them were just using using a drum and using a beat to bring themselves into this trance-like state. But I'm thinking nowadays, and maybe that number was higher, but maybe what he was subjected to, he reported as only 10%. But I think now with the trend for people to learn higher consciousness and wanting to get to these realms quicker, they're doing the expedited route of just saying, we'll take this drug and you'll see things you've never seen before. And so I think we're seeing a higher percentage now than we ever have, because it's becoming more mainstream, and you're hearing about more and more people going off into the Amazon to do psychedelic drugs. But when, even if they didn't do a psychedelic drug, the shaman did travel to these cosmos as well. So the work that I've seen with the shaman I worked with, they were always working in 3 dimensions. There's the middle reality, which is where we're at now. And there's also the middle reality you don't see, where there's like people who've passed on that don't know they've died, and they're still here in that middle world. And then there's the upper world and the lower world. And the upper world is classified as one where you see a lot of angelic beings, spiritual beings are there. And the lower world isn't of devil and satanic things. The lower world is actually full of animal spirits. It's more like jungle-like.
So earth-oriented.
Yes, and so we have these 3 different worlds that we talk about. And so usually as a shaman, we go through these 3 worlds, and they're all kind of spiraling together. And so if you go far enough into the upper world, you find yourself in the lower world. And you keep on going, you're back in the middle world. And so it's almost mind-boggling and almost nauseating at times.
Well, if God is often symbolized as a circle or a sphere. So if you imagine a circle divided into thirds, if you go far enough in any direction, you're going to basically hit what connects all of them together.
Absolutely.
So, I know because, you and I have been together for quite a while, so I get more access to you than most people, and we do a lot of these types of things together, but I think it would be fun if you shared your evolution as a person through mystery schools and the kinds of things, because you had done a lot of development even before you became a shaman, so to speak. And so it seems to me that, there's 2 things. It seems to me that you were being potentially led in your life path by what I often call the invisible thread, or the invisible golden thread. So a couple of questions is, do you feel that you were being led to the place that you're at now, so that each of the things like the mystery schools and the various workshops ultimately were like pieces of a puzzle? Or was it that you just had a general interest and happen to
No,
jump into a shaman
I think
school?
this latter. I really think there was a purpose, and there was I was being guided, even though at the time I didn't know. It was just this sudden urge to do something, and I was compelled to take these classes. And I really think it was around, I would say the year 2010 is really when I started having this kind of a spiritual awakening. I mean, my whole life I've had some pretty amazing events happen as a child, and that I was always dabbling in these different realms. But it wasn't about the year 2010 when I kind of just said, I realized that I had a need to learn more about life, and I was wanting to explore, non-realities, if you'd say. And I would ask my friends, hey, let's take this class. And they'd be like, no, I don't have the time, or I don't have the money, or oh, it's too far away, or whatever it was. And I just got to a point where I realized, you know what, if I'm going to do these things, I got to do it by myself. And I think it really started with your work. I started taking the CHEK Institute courses, and that was it was a way of saying, I want to learn more about me. So I started taking the CHEK Practitioner courses and learning about the body, and then learning more about holistic health. But that empowered me to take a class by myself, because I always had these ideas that you went with a buddy. And so when I first went, I was kind of intimidated because I thought I'd be the only one by myself. And then I realized most people take courses by themselves. You don't actually go with a friend. And so that was like a big awakening. I'm like, I love this. I'm learning things. I'm getting new tools. And so then I thought, well, what else am I excited about? And so I was, there was that movie, The Secret, that came out. And John Astroff was in that movie, and he was the one with the vision boards. And he was talking about your dream and creating vision boards so you can create what you want. So I ended up taking a class with him. That was back in 2010 as well. And it was all about, it's called the Having It All Challenge. And so there was students, I don't remember how many were in that class, 30 or so, but they were from all over the world. And so we had online courses, and we'd be talking about what we wanted in life and how we were going to achieve it. And it was a very powerful class because it really inspired you to really say, what is it that I want?
Yes.
And we work weekly on, things, and saying, when we'd go through, the courses would change from business mastery to personal development, relationships, and then we were writing down what we were doing and documenting all the things that were changing our life, because we had this new belief that we could have it all. And so there was a few winners at the end of the course, and I think there was five total winners. And of course I was one of them. And one of them was I was going to write a book, and I finished my book, my book that I wrote. And so that was really and started me on my path too, because it showed me that, if I just look for what I want, the right teachers will show up when I need them. And so that was kind of my path, even though it wasn't shamanism. It was like, if I get my mind involved and follow my dream, I just have to trust God or trust the universe that it's going to lead me to the right path. And so from there, I started dabbling in Hay House, work, and seeing her. I went to her Hay House conferences, and there's a lot of mystics there. And I met Sonia Chokwen, who was one of my earlier favorites, and she was all about your spirit guides and understanding what spirit guides were. And she even talked about runners, and that's one of my favorites. It's about connecting to these runners on the land, and these spirits that will help you find a parking space.
Right.
So if you're going to the mall, you say, hey runners, I'm going to the mall, can you find me a space? And boom, there's a spot. So it's almost like these spirits are just waiting to have fun, and they're waiting for someone to talk to and connect to. And if you're the one, they're like, oh gosh, someone's listening. We'll make there a spot for that girl because no one else is paying attention to us.
I find the same thing with plants.
Right.
They a number of times they have said, what's happened to your people? They used to talk to us all the time.
Right.
And I usually say, I'm sorry, they fell asleep.
Right.
I fell
And isn't
asleep.
it the truth though? And the more you talk to them, the more they talk back, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this is a busy world we're living in, we're not even aware. So that was kind of my path, is the early start of it. And then from there, I learned of another author. I started doing energy medicine, and I really learned about a lot of skills that. I did a course for about a year. But then, I don't want to say her name, but that particular teacher, I felt like when I met her at the initial year, she was a very powerful teacher. In the course of the year, I felt like she started working with dark entities. Like her energy shifted, and I don't know if she's that way now, but it was early in her career. And I remember going to her workshop, and I wanted to sit real close to her because I'm really good about feeling energy. I've always had that gift of feeling buzz from stones or crystals or people. Like usually a lot, if you're around a guru, they have a buzz, a vibration about them. And so I always like to feel that vibrational buzz that person is emitting. So I sat in the very front row because I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen her in a while, and I feel that buzz. And unfortunately, it was a year later. I was sitting in the row, and the buzz was so strong. It was like I drank like a whole pot of coffee. It was just buzzing me, like my thyroid was overstimulated. And I was just like, this is not comfortable. It was like just like you're jacked up on speed or something. And I was like, oh gosh. And I said, this is the opposite of what you think of a mentor. You want a calm presence.
Yeah.
You know? And so I remember even in class I was coughing, and I was like, oh something's up. And then apparently my energy was affecting her, and she was like, somebody in the front row, there's you're doing something. And I'm like, I was kind of like, what is she talking about? But she could feel my energy and hers working together. And she kind of freaked me out because she would pull energy out of people, and she's like, oh, this person's working with this guide, and she would talk with the energy like Michael, the archangel. And then one time there was this girl came up, and she had this very beautiful energy about her, and she says, oh, she's working with the Christ light. And I'm like, yeah, that feels like Christ energy. That could be it. But then what she did is she was, I'm going to pull this energy out and take it from her. And I was like, what? And
why would she do that?
Well, it was bizarre. But as she went to pull it out, the energy dropped. And she proceeded to walk around the room with her arms out like this and goes, I'm going to heal all of you with this energy. And it was not present. And I don't know if anybody else felt it. But I'm like, do you guys feel that? The energy's gone.
Yeah.
And the placebo effects of people are like, oh, yes, I'm feeling it. I'm like, it was just like,
yeah.
And so I was like, whoa, I don't know what's going on with this girl, but I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
So in this class, one of the things she said is, oh, I went to mystery school and I dropped out. I went to mystery school and I dropped out, and I got kicked out or whatever she said.
Mm-hmm.
And all I remember thinking is, I'm here for a reason. I want to go to mystery school. Now I had no idea about what mystery school was, but because she got dropped out of it and I could feel this energy about this woman, I thought, I'm going. I'm so going. And so I remember right when that course ended, I went online, looked up mystery school, and found Nine Gates Mystery School, and I signed up. And I was like, and I just signed up, and I was joined the next course. And I remember when I went there, the teachers were like, well, how did you hear about us? Because as an esoteric school, you usually have it's usually, brought by word of mouth.
Right.
It's very uncommon that someone just signs up for this. So I told them my story, and I said, I just wanted to go because she said she didn't like it. And they were just like, wow, that's amazing. And it was one of the best experiences in my life.